Bonjour, bonsoir, dear friends. Bienvenue on Happy Hour JCB Live. We're going to be traveling to Toronto today. We're going to go and meet a fabulous power woman. She was ranked one of the top Power 60 women of Toronto. She's an entrepreneur. She's a journalist. She's an award-winning. She is an educator. She knows wine like there's no tomorrow. She's charming. She's what I would call a Renaissance woman. And she understands art, taste, business, sensuality, and of course, business. So, dear friends, we're going to learn a great deal. We've met many years ago in the fabulous town of Toronto at the Fairmont Hotel. Her name is Angela Aiello. Gorgeous Italian descent. She could sing. She could, if you were to ask me, she looks like an opera singer. So I'm delighted, dear friends, for all of you to be inspired today by the beautiful, the gorgeous, the sensual, the pulpeuse Angela. Voilà, Angela, bonjour.
Bonjour. Oh, it's so nice to see you. A little bit of cuvee sparkling happening in your glass. That's exciting.
Well, is there anything that shouldn't happen with a beautiful lady like you? I need to have a toast. Let's have a toast. Well, you could do it with Raymond as well. I'll take anything as long as I can look at your eyes. Santé, cheers.
Santé. A pleasure.
So how does it feel? Well, we got a drink, huh?
Yes, exactly.
No
bad luck for us.
Perfect time to drink a lovely wine on this early summer season. So how does it feel to be born with an Italian father?
You know what's so funny? My dad is funny. I think I get a lot of my comic relief lifestyle skills from him because he had 4 daughters. And so he grew up in a house full of women, which I think you might know a little bit about, don't you?
Just a little. And how was it for you to be born and raised with a bicultural family? Because this is really cool. I must say, I say that because my parents are both really French for 4 or 5 centuries. And I love it with my daughter because they get a feel of my wife, Gina, Californian, and me, French. So how is it for you? What kind of experience can you tell us about it?
A little new world, old world assemblage, if you will. Yeah, exactly. No, I know. You know, my dad kept things. I'm almost a bit taller than my dad, to be honest. I'm 5'1", and so my grandfather too. He's an amazingly funny short man from the south of Italy. I mean, my dad growing up, he was the cook. You know, he really taught me my pleasure for food, and wine wasn't a huge deal in my family. Premium wine wasn't. We just sort of like drank it at dinner. It wasn't something everybody really knew about. I brought that actually to my family table. But my dad really sort of instilled this foodie level into me. My mom instilled discipline. She was the new world. Discipline, get a job at 16, which is where I started in wine. But yeah, my dad taught me how to eat and drink and cook and, you know, really have a good time.
I love that. And this is great to have from your parents such a great and early inspiration, because are you today an enormous cook? And I know you're an amazing wine taster, but do you cook at home too?
Yes, I would say that my love for wine is only fueled by my passion for food and my love being in the kitchen. I mean, I'm an artistic drinker and I'm also an artistic chef. My sister got the baking genes. So like when it comes to the science of cooking, I'm not necessarily that person. I'm much more of a, a genie in a bottle. Like everything kind of goes into the pasta sauce and it's about this temperature. And sure, you know, if we don't have the exact noodle, it's great. And so I'm very flexible in the kitchen and I find that my creativity really lets loose when it comes to finding great ways to cook and great things to cook with all the wine I'm obviously drinking. So
if you were to pair this wonderful Raymond Chardonnay made by a 5'1" lady as well, Stephanie Putnam, and you share the same height. It's pretty cool.
I mean, Nothing. I've recently kind of got over my shellfish allergy that I had when I was in my 20s and in my early 30s, and which I'm very excited about. It opens up a whole new realm of food. And so for me, I'm instantly seeing this wine with a nice lobster tail or lobster dinner. Like, this is elevated Friday night. I've worked so hard all week. I want a bottle of this Raymond to elevate my, really amazing lobster dinner. Like, that's what I want with this wine.
And what kind of sauce would you prepare with your
Oh,
lobster dinner? Because I'm coming. Remember, I'm going to fly over and have dinner tomorrow night.
well, we're going to bring over some East Coast, some of that great East Coast lobster. It's in season right now. We might even boil up a whole lobster and pull something together, but the sauce has to have wine in it. I mean, I'm one of those cooks that if I'm sitting here drinking it, it's going in my food. Everything, whether that's, a sauce, a red sauce for my steak, or whether that's putting a little Chardonnay on top of my lobster tails or into the butter. I mean, the minute you add wine into your cooking, everything just gets elevated. It's more powerful in your palate.
I love that. To elevate the sauce with a little Chardonnay. Fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm going to drink to that. And I'm going to start putting a little Chardonnay in my lobster sauce. I use butter because there's nothing better than shallots and a little bit of parsley in my sauce for lobster. So I'll add Chardonnay, and I'm sure it's going to be richer.
Oh, and I was even I was thinking about stone crab or some really amazing crab where you're just really right now, I find that I'm taking food that I would want to eat out. During the pandemic, which was what I was doing, I was taking food I would order only in the restaurants and I'm bringing it home. And those were really fun times to sort of open something wonderful or buy something wonderful that maybe you haven't had before. This sort of sense of adventure came back to me during the pandemic in my own home through wine and food. It was really nice.
And did you have during the pandemic all those beautiful bottles of wine behind you?
Yes, I did my fair share of trying to drink some old wine, but I don't know how you felt, John Charles. At the beginning of the pandemic, I was sort of like, the world is ending. What am I drinking right now? And that was my immediate reaction. And I went to think about, where have I not really drank enough wine from? And can you believe I went to Burgundy and had a little bit of Burgundy wine? And it was really quite nice. It was, I'd really never dove into the entire category. And I know you of all people appreciate that.
We love Burgundy. And I could see there's a lot of Burgundy bottles as cadavers behind you. So I love that.
Yeah.
So I would love to know how you became such a powerful woman in the world of wine and spirits and education, and really as well tailoring to the millennia and all that. Would you give us a sense of how, as a young lady inspired by food and wine, you became the journalist that you are today, the educator that you are today? Inspire us so we follow you and we do the same.
It's I feel like when you start to tell your story, it starts to, especially I just turned 39, I'm rolling into 40, and my story is getting a fine wine, right? Just like these bottles of wine, maybe without the dust on the bottles just yet. But my gray hairs are coming in. It's all good,
None. There's none. You're looking fabulous, and that's why you're so successful on TV as well. You are TV galore.
I take inspiration from you. I feel like we both, our philosophy around wine is, changing up the tradition. It's keeping that classic skeleton of the world of wine, but it's also democratizing it and making it sort of so much more fun for everyone. And so you and I are aligned on a similar philosophy that I know. I've been to many of your establishments, drank of your wines, been into your tastings. And so people like you inspire me to help also move this industry forward. And I think that it needed some work. This industry needed some work. It needed some fun. It needed some excitement. You brought that in so many of your estates and the ways that you present the activities that you do, like the show. And so people like you really inspired me to say, what else can we do to help change this industry? And so I really sort of looked to democratize it. As I sort of became aware of what I was doing in the business, you sort of became, what am I doing in this business? I grew up sort of young in the business, very, blinders were on in a lot of ways. Grew up countryside, in the country, dairy farm beside me, had my first car at 16. Like I said, my mom was disciplined, go get a job. Got 2 jobs at 16
Wow, good
while I
for
was going
you.
to school. So hard work is one of those things that this industry also calls for. I think people assume there's a lot of glamour, which there is, but we all work hard for that, those glamorous moments, And so I worked in the business at 16. Actually, the wine industry helped pay for my education through university, which is a business comm degree.
Yes.
I moved to Toronto. I had no friends. I had moved sort of as a country girl into the city, knowing that I wanted to find work, figuring the wine world was going to leave me at the time. But I had all this wine that I had sort of collected, and I started to throw wine club parties. So I started a little mini wine club in Toronto when wine clubs weren't even a thing. I'm what they're calling a geriatric boomer. A geriatric millennial. And so I'm at the tail end of the very first person in the millennial generation to be there. And so when I moved to Toronto, it was about 2006, and social media just got started. And so I've used it and leveraged all this free media to build a community of people who loved wine that were all young. And it was so nice because I had worked at a retail store for a couple of years, and not everybody really knew about wine. And there was a lot of high education at the time, but there wasn't a lot of fun education around wine. And so I really exploited, I think, that part of what was missing in our city. And over 13 years, I grew a wine club to over 50,000 members.
Wow.
We had two venues in Toronto that I was doing.
That's huge, to 50,000 members. That's enormous from nothing. This is enormous. Wow.
Yeah. And we had 2 venues. I had a Queen Street West venue that I had licensed, and I was running a wine school out of 3 nights a week. You can imagine that's 3 nights a week, 52 weeks. That's 150 classes a year or so. And it was cool because people would walk down an alleyway, not what you'd thinking for a wine school. I mean, I did some pop-up wine schools at the Ritz. People loved it, of course. But then you get people walking down an alleyway when you finally get a venue, and going into an entire sort of basement that's built of wine, and people are like, where are we? And it's, I think that's why, the Buena Vista Winery is so interesting to me too, because it has that old feel, that rugged feel, but the wines are premium. And that's really what, wine is. It's that premium experience. And so during that sort of later time, about, 10 to 12 years in, I started to notice that wine needed to be on TV more. Why wasn't wine on TV? What was going on? Where was it? It was always sort of in the, we were doing all these tastings, and I was invited as a blogger at the time to go to all these tastings, but nobody was doing social media. I mean, now the world is so different, right?
For sure. So then you went on TV, which was big. So explain us that transition.
So at the time, I have a PR degree, so I just was pitching stations on doing fun wines. And I, pitched a celebrity wines statement or a series. And so I was on Global. I was on Stephen and Chris doing regular wine segments when I was, in my late 20s, producing them even, talking about how are we bringing wine to TV, and no one had ever done it before. So it was a really interesting time because people love to drink, but how are you sort of transferring that love of wine to video, right? When people are just sort of watching you drink.
And how, so show us how you translate it and you get people excited. So maybe you describe this wine. Maybe let's describe again that Chardonnay.
Yes.
And show us how you get all of us totally energized about wine. Because I think that's the hardest thing to do on television. Food, you see actions. Wine, you don't. It's just your beautiful lips and your tongue and your eyes and your senses moving around.
Well, Chardonnay. Well, let's just talk about Chardonnay. She's the queen of grapes. And if you don't know Chardonnay, now you know. But it's also the hardest grape to shop for. So when I talk about Chardonnay in a lot of ways, I talk about, for women, I find like when you're shopping for jeans or when you're shopping for bras, it's the most horrible experience. Chardonnay is the same way. It's so varied in its price, its quality, and its taste. And so you really find, when people are like that whole movement of ABC Chardonnay, which is so passé now, nobody even says that anymore. There's always a Chardonnay for you. So, this Chardonnay to me is one of those unctuous, amazing, one of those wines that has texture and weight. This is one of those wines you have to get to kind of later, I feel like, in your wine journey. You know, people usually start off with Sauvignon Blanc. They got like that fresh acid or that Pinot Grigio, but that acquired taste for weight, texture, lees contact, oak, you know, those are things when you talk about wine, I think people go, what? Texture? What does that even mean? And so, you know, a lot of times, just like in your design, you talk about how is that wine sort of tasting like silk or satin? Or what are those textures you're bringing into understanding wine? I mean, yes, we could go with apple, pear, peach, you know, the generic ways of describing wine. But what's your imagination saying about this wine? And I know you have so many wines that feel your imagination. I mean, you're probably the most creative man in this entire industry. So when you talk about wine, it's one of those ways where it's like, how is that wine hitting you emotionally?
That's it.
Also making you think and getting your memory, you know, kind of intrigued enough to love something.
And I love that. And you've done that with me. So now you're going to get me to do, dear Angela, something I've never done. I'm going to go bar shopping.
Just to see how hard it is. Yeah.
I'm going to try to figure it out because, you know, I work out too. And I must say, you know, certainly we have different sizes, but I'm going to try to go bar shopping this weekend. And then I'm going to FaceTime you and you're going to give me some advice because it's not easy. I've done jean shopping. It's not easy either.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, and that's how I feel like you have to bring wine into something else for people to sort of instantly understand, oh, now I get why it's so hard to find a Chardonnay I like, right? Because it's about your style. It's about your fashion sense. It's like, how are you? Wine is all about you. Wine is not about anyone else but you. And so how are you interacting with that wine? Somebody could tell you it's a 90-point wine. Somebody could tell you it's a great wine. But like your confidence about what you like has to be created. And I think
that's the cool part is how do you succeed to get those people that confidence so they can assert the fact that they like or don't like, and it's okay their significant other like something and they don't like something. So give us some clues how to make all of us here feel comfortable to assert what we like.
No, that's a great idea. And I think that's sort of what it comes down to. Like, how are you building your wine confidence? And what does that even mean? And so the very first step is understanding physiologically, we are all built different. Our tongue is built different. So even what you taste in a wine will be different from, let's just say 3 people. So a university study has done a test basically on which type of taster are you. And so there's research to prove that in the world, there are 3 different types of tasters: super tasters, non-tasters, and tasters. So super tasters and non-tasters fall into the 25% category, with 50% of the population falling into the taster category. And the science behind where you fall into this category is how many taste buds are on your tongue that you cannot change. You're born with.
You measure it.
Yeah, I know, right?
Do I have?
There's like a nice microscope that comes in that measures all your taste buds.
Or is it through a French kiss that you can measure it?
You know, I think you're right, though. It does come down to sensuality. Like, how much are you sort of really tasting that wine, right? Because wine is about your palate, but it's also about your whole body, the way your whole body feels about a wine. You know, I think there's a difference in, it's not just about your palate, too. It is about the feelings around that wine. When I taste a good wine, my whole body feels it, you know, like I can feel it from my hair tingling down to my toes. Like that's what you want a really great wine to taste like.
So that's the taster. So what are the other 2 categories?
So there's the super taster and the non-taster. And so it all depends on how relatively you can taste bitterness. And so the super taster is super sensitive to bitter and has heightened sense of understanding about bitterness. And then the non-taster has lower taste buds and usually likes spicy foods, more salt, because what they're trying to do is enliven their palate. And so the first thing I like to teach people about is, even if you don't feel comfortable with what you talk about in wine, that's fine. Acid, bitterness, don't worry about it. But what you need to know is that just because you don't taste what someone else is tasting doesn't mean what you're tasting is wrong. And I think that's very important from a science perspective.
That's right. I love it. God, you energized me to rethink my whole categories. But it's very true. So, how do you take as well your friends and family and others to really experiment a full array of wine? Because often what I see with a lot of friends of mine, they start to like a wine and then they repeat the experience, which is great for the specific winery they purchase. But how do you advise all of us to expand a little bit the horizon and the trials?
I always say if I had to be monogamous with a wine, I would pick Riesling. But then I would just constantly cheat on it with Chardonnay. Like, that is just the way that it's going to be. Like, I'm sorry, you're going to have to accept this about me. So luckily, we don't have to be monogamous with a wine, but we can be as adventurous as we want to be. And I think that's really important too, is heightening your sense of adventure around wine. Particularly in this pandemic, I have really sort of come up with this liquid passport idea, this wine passport of like, you can't go anywhere during this time, but you can go everywhere in your glass. And that to me is so inspiring, this idea of open up your liquid passport.
I love it.
That's really what is inspiring, I think, people over the last 18 months was, we had this luxury area of our life ripped away from us. No one could travel, but you can travel every single day from the power of your glass. And I do have to admit, I spent a lot of time drinking Burgundy wine, but the nice thing was I went back to some of my tried and true favorites because they're not going anywhere. California Cab, California Chardonnay. I mean, oh my God, sparkling, all these wines that are sort of, are your official, go-tos. They're your family brands, if you will, but you have to have experimentation with other wine grapes. You just have to. It's part of your wine journey.
Yeah, to understand what you like versus what you don't like. So I love, by the way, your glass you've used, that little glass, no stem for the Chardonnay. Did you like that as well?
Oh, I mean, this is, Riedel like revitalized my whole drinking capability by all the glasses that they've designed, including their wine wing glasses, which I'm a big fan of. But these are my absolute favorite glasses. The Chardonnay, the Pinot glasses, the Burgundy glasses by Riedel. These are always in my register of wine glasses.
I'm with you. So much. I'm with you. So we find one of your classic, I know at your house, the family classic from Raymond. So I'm excited we're trying this together because it has the centrality of the view of Napa Valley, that beautiful, gorgeous viewpoint of Mount St. Helena on it. And this is really I believe, that incredible blend of what Cabernet can be in California. So as you're a power woman, ranked one of the top power women of Toronto, tell us from your power perspective, what do you feel about this wine?
Oh, Cabernet, the king. I mean, he's the king. So we tasted the queen and now we've got the king, which is even so interesting to me because I feel like Cabernet Franc should actually be the king because Cabernet Franc is the father of Cabernet Sauvignon, right? And teaching people that genetically is also very interesting. But the son has surpassed the father, if you will, in this particular instance. But one thing I love about California Cabernet is this intoxication of aroma that you get immediately from smelling it. I mean, it's like crushed velvet. You're looking at, these sort of brambled berries. I mean, I love this idea.
Crushed velvet. Ooh, I'm going to write that down. I'm so sorry.
And
please
I know that.
Going.
Yeah, I know that's going to come out on the palate too, because it's one of those things. Velvet's one of those things that can transfer from the nose and the aroma and the bouquet right directly to your palate. But I love too. The other thing I love about gorgeous wines like this that are just fragrant and aromatic from such premium areas like Napa Valley is, floral. You get these violets that are just undeniable in very aromatic, elegant wines. And I mean, the one thing that always makes wine so elegant is acid. I'm always teaching people about acid all the time. Like, you want to learn about wine? Let's learn about acid. That's the only thing if you really need to know about an elegant wine is where's the acid, which I love about elegant wines like this that are premium enough you can smell premium. I always like to tell people that if you spend enough time smelling wine, you're going to smell and be intoxicated by something that's just like amazing. You get taken to a place in the aroma. And I remember visiting California after fires and going up in a hot air balloon and seeing all around Napa Valley and just thinking, this place is so special. You know, it's such a special place. And I'm really looking forward to going back.
And you're going to be our guest. I'm going to take you on another air balloon. Or maybe we'll do another experience. It's going to be a secret, dear friends. And maybe we'll Facebook Live with the beautiful Angela. And we'll be somewhere secret. And we'll show you something very special. So when are you back?
Oh, my goodness. That's a great question. Oh, ruby red palette. That elegance is coming through. It's so beautiful.
Oof,
I mean, this wine.
Word. I'm
this
taking
wine is
notes,
just,
dear friends.
This is a dynamo wine.
Dynamo wine. I love it. So, Angela, can you show us your right and left arm because you have beautiful things imprinted in them? God, look at this. The rose.
And the glass of Riesling or Chardonnay, depending on the
I love it. Wow, very cool tattoo. And the dove.
Another one.
It's a dove.
It's a dove. Yeah.
And we have so much in common. I'm in love with roses, and my personal family logo is a dove.
Ooh.
Can you believe?
So much sense. Makes so much sense. We are kindred spirits.
Hey, we totally are. So, Angela, I would love for you to tell us, you created, besides all the success you're having as an amazing journalist, and I think you write for a lot of magazines, right?
I do, yes. Actually, Horizon's one of the ones I write for. It goes into the Toronto Star.
Big deal.
Monthly, which is great. Yes, really quite nice.
And many others. You as well have created as an entrepreneur, and for all of you ladies, you know, you got to realize it's possible to go and be extremely successful in wine and spirits and food. Angela is the prime example of this. You as well, because writing was not enough, educating was not enough, being on TV shows was not enough. You decided to create your own IG TV. Name the juice. The juice. Of course, the juice. Would you tell us about this?
Yes, absolutely. I was, last year around, around the start of the pandemic, when I was like, don't know what to do. I thought, the best way to bring people together is to help keep them excited about something. And so I pulled together, it took me a while to think of the name, to be honest. It's hard to think of a name for a show. But I thought, I really liked Lizzo's song, The Juice. There's some really great hip hop songs around the juice. Plus, it's grape juice, man. Don't think too hard about it, but let's get fun about it. And so I'm at episode 53 as of yesterday and interviewing some winemakers, and maybe this will even go on there. I'd love to have a chance to put it on, and it's been really fun,
I love it. So how does it work and how can everybody access it?
Well, at the moment, it's basically on Instagram, but I have been moving a lot of the videos over to YouTube, onto my YouTube channel. And so on my IGTV, right, it's usually on an IG Live, or sometimes depending on the style, I've been doing Zoom videos and uploading them as well. So heading over to my Super Wine Girl Instagram account and looking at the IGTV portion is where you can find most of the episodes there.
Well, I hope you're going to post this one on yours as well, so we could be together symbiotically at all time.
Yes, exactly.
So what inspires you to be such a serial entrepreneur, an amazing wine journalist, wine writer, TV personality, educator? Tell us about what really drives this irresistible lady.
I would love to ask you the same question, because I think it's got to be a little craziness. I think there's a little bit of crazy inside. I always say, in the best possible way. I have high expectations for the world, yes. And not just myself, but I have high expectations for the world. And I'm not the type of person to sit in the corner and complain about the world. I love to be the first person jumping in and doing things about it. It's like I said, I grew up in a very disciplined family, but it was also, we didn't have any money. I mean, everybody did everything. Like, you were working all the time, you were cleaning all the time. It was an immigrant family, in a way where I grew up in that type of a
Yes.
community where it was like, get to work. You're not working. You're not sitting around on Saturday. No, I was out on the tractor doing basically taking 2 acres of grass. So I was learning about Sauvignon Blanc because I was on the tractor,
Yeah,
smelling that fresh cut grass. But I always say there's gotta be some craziness in me because I don't sit still for long, although I do like to relax. I mean, relaxing is really, I think, why I work so hard. So I feel I deserve the relaxation. But yes, I'm not a person that kind of sits around and waits for the world to happen to her. I kind of really like to make things happen. And I think deep down, I'd like coaching people about that too, because there's a lot of people that sit around and sort of wait for things, and that's not going to do you any good. You have to go out, you have to fail. I mean, if you and I had a conversation about how many times things we thought were going to work and they didn't work out, or how many pivots you had to make because things shifted and changed and you were disappointed. But then we'd also talk about all the highs of all the amazingness that comes from that one moment where you're like, I didn't think this could happen, and it happened. When I looked back on my career, my mom took me to this career, phase or job search kind of event when I was in my later teens. So I was 18, 19 or so. And there was a girl there and she's like, what do you really want to do in the world? And I looked at my mom and I said, I want to travel and I don't want to have to pay for it. I should have said, I want to travel and not pay for it and make good money. I mean, my dreams.
That takes a sugar daddy sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. But that's what the wine world has done to me. I've traveled to 14 countries. I've tasted over 10,000 wines. And, I feel like it's my duty to help rebuild that other. If you're going to give something to me, I'm going to give something to you. I'm not a natural taker. I'm a natural giver. And so this type of reciprocity, I'd like to bring back to the wine business to help change it and bring more people into it, help sell more wine, help more people fall in love with wine. I mean, it seems like such an easy job.
Wow, congratulations. Now, big question for ladies who are all with us and always watching our JCB Live. What role do ladies have in the world of wine, spirits, and alcoholic beverage at large? What's your view there?
Well, I mean, we have
and how much of a difference they can bring to it.
We have every role. We are great in every role. There is a role for every woman out there.
Yeah,
and 100%. I mean, I have a hard time figuring out what I want to do because I feel like no one ever taught me I couldn't do anything. I was never told as a child, you can't do that. I mean, never. I was never like that. And so I just think the world is open to me all the way. And I'm so grateful for that one value on life because it inhibits my fear of doing things, right? But I think that women in this wine world, I mean, we have power, so much power. One, we drink so much wine. So we need to get in there and help create more wine. And I spent 30 days volunteering in South Africa doing a wine harvest. And it was the hardest month of my entire life. So it's so hard. I mean, I'm sure you've done a lot of this work. A lot of your team has done this work. You have so many wineries. You know how hard it is. Mother Nature cannot be the friendliest of females sometimes. But I always say
to us at the same time, she's very good to us. If you treat her, I believe, responsibly, with a great raison d'être, with organic and biodynamic farming, which allows, that symbiotic relationship that you referred to before.
Yes, 100%. And I think that, there is a ton of room for women in this business. And I'm seeing so many women of diverse backgrounds and men too, regardless of gender, people popping up in this wine business that, 10 years ago, I remember being like, where are all the young people? I literally remember, being in my early 30s, being like, why am I the only young person at this tasting? Why am I the only person doing this? And it boggled me. And 10 years later, now there are so many of us. And it's this amazing factor of, not once would I ever have to remove anybody's crown to remember that I have one. It's one of those embracing our community to help build a better wine world for our future. And so, after that winemaking harvest in South Africa during the drought, a condensed harvest, there was hail. It was like there should have been a camera behind me the whole time because it was just like this crazy moment in time. But I think the minute when people start to say, oh, is that wine, wine's too expensive. I go, whoa, let's just calm down a minute here and let me teach you a lesson because wine takes so much work.
I know it does. So, well, thank you for outlining this. And I hope every lady here listening with us feel they have an opportunity in every aspect of it. So now, briefly, where do you see the wine world going?
I feel like we were in sort of this democratization of wine for a while. I feel like we're in this wine renaissance where wine is super shape shifting into a new future. Unknown. I'm not really sure where it's going, but I know it is definitely going to be better than where it was. And I think that's super exciting. And so I feel very grateful and privileged to be able to witness this being here during this time of change and know what it was before and be able to see it later. And I'm very excited about it.
You mean shift in terms of being easier and more approachable, easier to access, easier to drink from a stylistic standpoint?
I think, yes, absolutely. Accessibility, diversity, perspectives, values. There's some shifting in the philosophy of how people are sort of marketing wine, how people are building wine, how people are pricing wine. And there's a shifting on both sides, the trade side and the consumer side. And the consumer side is getting younger and so aware of everything. And so I feel like there's product innovation that's happening that we probably never would have thought of 10 years ago, you know? And so I think people are getting more innovative in how they're trying to find wine that fits this world. And then also listening to the world. I call it social listening, but what does the world need that you're giving back to them rather than just sort of putting something in their face?
For sure. Very well said. Now, Angela, what is your dream?
I'm living it every day.
Let's talk dreams. Let's talk dreams. Not necessarily your wildest, but give us your dreams to come.
Well, I'd really like to do some road trips around some wine countries in the world. That would be really great. I think, seeing Croatia, seeing little spots in Italy. I've seen some of the heart spots of Italy, but where are those sort of undiscovered little spots? What else is there? I mean, I think everybody always wants me to say I'd like to own a vineyard and make wine, and maybe that will be what happens. I see definitely like gardening, working with my hands is something that I love. It's probably why I love to cook and why I talk a lot with my hands. Thank you, Italian background.
We love it. It's great to be animated. So, Angela, now a very big question, a last momentous question. I would like, if you don't mind, of course, to send a message to all the people with us tonight, early summer 2021, and about, a big message, whichever direction you want to go. It's your opportunity to send the world a message to be remembered for those words that you're going to send to all of us. And I'm embracing them already. I know I'm going to love them. So I'm opening my arms. Hear the words, come my way. I will follow the diligent and wise words of Angela Aiello.
Well, it's not a long paragraph, but it is, I like to say, live and drink colorfully. We need more color in our lives. And that is from our foods to our wines to our dreams and inspirations. A lot of people live very gray and black and white in life. And I would like to say to people, use food and wine as an inspiration for you to enjoy and live colorfully, thinking you don't have any boundaries. There are no boundaries in the color wheel. They're all over the place. So how are you doing more of what you makes you feel good and that adds color to your life?
I love it. Well, Angela, to crush, velvet, to ruby red, to the liquid passport, to IGTV, to being one of the most powerful women in Toronto, to doing all what you do at 5.1 feet and with such charm and powerful presence. We're delighted, and I'm so excited that I can introduce you to all our friends out in the world, and hopefully they will contact you if they're in Toronto or watch you on your The Juice program, because we're going to mention that in the chat, dear friends. It's coming. And we cannot wait, Angela, to physically hold each other and crush velvet together and have a great time. So I want to commend you for all what you do as an amazing leader in the world of wine, in the world of femininity, in this world of wine that I cherish and adore so much. So congratulations to you.
Salut, and thank you, John Charles, for being an inspiration to us all.
Thank you, and thank you for saving 1 or 2 bottles unopened in your background so we can have them together. Hopefully it's the 1800s. I'd love it.
Yeah, right.
Big kiss, abbraccio tutti. Ciao, ciao.
Ciao, ciao, ciao.